Everyone, my name is Tanya. My pronouns are she, her. Um, yes, we will be recording this, so I can definitely send it to you over email. Um, oops. Okay. Okay, these pictures are not of me. These are our old student facilitators, so we're gonna click through that. Again, my name is Tanya. My pronouns are she, her. I work at the Office of Student Services. At the end of this presentation, I will put my email in the chat just in case anybody has any follow-up questions or anything like that. And then also, Caroline, if you want to just send me an email after this, you can either send it to me today or tomorrow. You can even send it right now, to be honest, just so I can remember to get that recording sent to you. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions throughout this presentation. This is for you. So if there's anything that comes up as I'm going, feel free to just unmute and ask. Or if you're more comfortable asking questions in the chat, I will be periodically monitoring the chat. So we can do it that way. So here's our agenda. We're gonna talk about registration dates. We're gonna go through the course planning worksheet, the course catalog, talk about 590, one of the courses that are required. And then we'll go over some questions, okay? So your registration date and time is going to be given to you over email. So just make sure that you've completed the technical standards form to have a registration point time, and that's going to appear on your Wolverine access. So all of you should have gotten email instructions on how to set up your unique name in order to access Wolverine access. But yeah, so does anybody have any questions about setting up your unique name or has had trouble with that? Or any questions about anything like that? So another thing I want to mention about your email is it's probably stressful because you haven't heard much about your registration. You haven't heard much about orientation yet either, because that's not something you need to be immediately stressing about right this second. So rest assured you will get those emails as the time comes, and then they'll be super thorough and stuff like that. But again, you have my email as a point of contact. So if at any point something gets too confusing or anything like that, feel free to reach out. And then I would be happy to support you through that. So we're going to go through the course planning worksheet. So everybody has access to this. If you forget how to access this link, you'll be sent the slide deck as well. So, but if for whatever reason you don't have it, if you just go on the School of Social Work website or just Google SSW course planning worksheet, it'll pop up. So we're going to go through the course planning worksheet. I just wanted to double check again. No questions have come up so far. Okay, so again, the course planning worksheet is just, I highly recommend it. It's a really great way to be able to just know what classes you have to take each semester and not have to stress about it, and check to see what your requirements are. So I'm going to go through all of these points, but I'm just going to show you what mine looks like. So my admission term was fall of 2023. So I'm going to put that in there. And then the curriculum schedule, I'm 16 month. So that's just going to be if you're 16 month, 20 month, you know, advanced standing, there's all of these choices. So just make sure that you're choosing the correct one. So I'm 16 month. I'm also in a special program. So that's going to be like the scholarship programs. So I'm in child welfare scholars, and then my pathway is welfare of children and families. So as you can see, it's super straightforward. You just plug in your information and then hit create course planning worksheet. So in here, you can see the first fall term is broken down into what requirements I have to take. So if you see up here, there's this X. It indicates a required course. And then the triangle indicates choosing one. And then the circle indicates it's an elective course. So again, very straightforward. So the first fall term, I had to take all of these classes. And then the first winter term, same thing here. And then here is the triangle where I got to choose between 622 and 623. And then here's my elective credit. And then same thing for the spring and fall. So as you can see, it's very straightforward. Now, if you are in a scholarship program or a special program or anything like that, make sure that you're looking at the section of the program notes, because it tells you that you don't need to take certain classes. Like for example, here, I have to take 649 and I didn't realize that until after I took 649 because I did not scroll all the way down. I was kind of like, I'm just going to look at each semester one at a time. It's really not that overwhelming. It's okay. You can look at all of it. And then up here as well, I did not look at this. So right here, for example, I was required to take 723 in the second term instead of 3 elective credits. And the thing about 720, it's not offered in any other semester. So just be careful as you're looking through the course catalog, which we will go through later on in this presentation. Just make sure that the courses, like if you want to switch anything around, a lot of students are like, I'd rather take, this class later because I have more free time in my semester. That's totally fine. For example, like my electives, I kind of spread them out throughout my academic career here, just because that made more sense for me with my work schedule and everything else. I felt that it was less overwhelming to do it that way. But you just have to make sure that you are, and the courses are offered. So are there any questions about the course planning worksheet or how that works, how to go through it, anything like that? We're all doing good. I know this is kind of boring and it's a lot of information at once, so I promise I'm trying to make this as fun as possible, but it's not that exciting and that's okay. Is anybody feeling like particularly overwhelmed about course registration? Y'all can pop it in the chat. Like, do you guys just want like more of an overview? Are there anything specific that's really stressful? Go ahead and pop it in the chat or unmute yourselves. We can
I have a
talk a little.
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I went to Michigan undergrad, so I'm kind of familiar with like Wolverine Access and all of that stuff. I'm comfortable with that. What I'm worried about is, at least for me, I'm still in the process of getting my field placement,
Sure.
because I did the master track, so I'll be starting field placement in the fall. So I'm a little bit confused, like how I'm supposed to know like what hours and stuff my classes can be during the day when I don't know when my field placement is. And I feel like I can't have classes like in the middle of the day because now I'm like, oh, my field placement will probably be then. So I don't know if you have any advice about that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really great point, and I'm sorry that's really frustrating. Just know that you are not alone in that situation. Unfortunately, that just happens because the agencies we partner with often don't prioritize the fact that we're all in school, so they kind of take their sweet time. I will say for myself, what ended up being easier, I was kind of in the same run-in where like I had to take certain classes that were only offered during the day but also had to do my field requirements. So instead of doing like an 8-hour straight day, I split them up. So like one of my days, instead of it, like I'm in field technically more days, but the hours that are required because I do like a half day just to accommodate for that class I have to take. I would definitely reach out to the Office of Field Education, just to kind of get updates on that, just because that is a little bit that's their own department. And just, I would say, give it some time just because your enrollment registration date isn't going to be until later on. So probably closer to like mid to late July. So you still have a little bit of time for them to respond to you. So I would just say wait until like beginning of July maybe, and then reach out to the Office of Field Education. But that's definitely something you can do. Long-winded answer just to say that you don't have to do like 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours. And I think communication is the best way to go about that. So me telling my field site right away, like, hey, I also have these other responsibilities, or like I have a class at this time. They're very understanding, and that's something that most students often end up having to do just to accommodate for all of that. Does that answer your question, Danielle? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you. I appreciate that.
absolutely. And then Amy, I see in the chat that an overview would be great. Okay, so I'll try not to go in as much detail as I have been going. Any other questions before we move on in the presentation?
I
Any?
have a sort of question,
Sure,
if that's all right. So I
absolutely.
did my undergrad at Eastern,
Okay.
and I worked with like social work students doing their field placement at our counseling center.
Mhm.
So like at Eastern, grad school full time is 9 credits. But I'm seeing that I'm in the 20-month program, not advanced. So that's 2 years of 15 credit semesters, which feels a little overwhelming considering like that's how many credits I did in undergrad.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering how the course load compares to either other universities or undergrad because it feels like a lot.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Maggie, I will get to your question in just a second about 590. So, Riley, to answer your question, um, I honestly don't know why it's split up the way that it is. Um, but I do know that it honestly being 16 month, there is also the summer semester. So I'm currently in classes right now too. I think that it's definitely doable. I think one of the things that ends up being manageable about it is that there are 1 credit classes that are required that are built in. So it's for half of a semester. So that 15th credit, it's not like a full semester. I think a couple week class. I want to say 5 weeks. So it ends up being like doable in that sense. Also for 1 credits, there's options that are like you can do Saturday and Sunday 2 8-hour classes just to get that 1 credit. Sometimes they split it up a little bit differently, but there are options to go about it. I would say compared to undergrad, the course load felt pretty similar. I think what was trickier to manage was once field started as well. So I know this sounds really cheesy, but often I really emphasize this with my new admitted students. Having a schedule for yourself and having like intentional time allotted to like rest, whatever that means for you. So some people need to go outside and be in nature. Some people just want to rot on their couch and watch TV. I am a good mix of both. So just make sure that you have time and space accounted for that, because it gets more difficult to do that once it starts building. So that first semester, often, unless you're in the master track, I know you said you're 20-month, so you won't be starting field right away. So I think that that's a great time that first semester to just like build in self-care time and resting time so that when it does feel overwhelming, um, it's not unmanageable. And then also a lot of the professors are super accommodating as far as like extensions are concerned or if you need extra time. But I think that most of the classes are like discussion based rather than lecture based. So it feels more of like you're having a conversation, and a lot of the assignments are like group assignments or a paper or a presentation. So it's not like a lot of tests or things you have to necessarily study for. So I liked that better than undergrad. But does that answer your question? I know that was a
Yeah.
lot, but
No, yeah, that definitely eases some of my anxieties about the course load. So thank you.
yes, absolutely. That's what we're here for. So, I am going to pop in the chat to see Maggie's question. Okay, I'm confused by the schedule. So, good question, Maggie. The first class for 590 is just going to be that week of orientation. So seed week, you're going to have I don't know what SEED stands for. I should know, but that's just your orientation week. And Thursday is going to be your first 590 class, and that's just kind of integrated into all of the other activities for orientation. So that's one of those 1 credit classes where it's going to be the 5 courses. The first day for that is just going to be during orientation, and it's one of those like foundational classes where you're just really going over like the importance of like addressing implicit bias and very like baseline important things. So it's not like a very rigorous or intensive course, rather than like a way to get you started and thinking about your goals for your career within social work. But I'll talk more about what 590 entails later on in the presentation. But does that answer your question, Maggie, as far as we only meet 5 times? Yeah, I believe 5 is the number, but it's half of the semester instead of the full semester. So it's going to be one of your 1 credit classes that you have to take. But yes, that first class is just going to be orientation week. I'm not really sure why they do it that way, but it ends up being nicer because it ends earlier than if you were to sign up for other 1 credit classes. So it's a very easy, you breeze right through it. So yeah, no, Maggie, when I saw that class too in my schedule, I was like, why is the class only like half of a semester? But that's how all of your 1 credits are going to be. Any class that has more credits than that is obviously going to be longer, but yeah, it's definitely confusing. So I'm glad that you asked. Does that answer the question? Does that make more sense about like why it starts during orientation? Okay, sweet, awesome. All right, we're gonna move on unless anybody has any other questions. I don't see anything in the chat. I don't see any hands raised, so we're gonna move forward. If I can, sometimes I feel like grandma with technology. I'm trying to reshare my screen, sorry. Okay, here we go, yay. Okay, oop, my bad. Okay, so we did the course planning worksheet. So again, like I said, the course planning worksheet is tentative. You don't have to go by this. I did, except for my elective credits, just because again, like I said, sometimes it gets tricky trying to figure out what courses are offered when. Especially if you're 16-month or master track, you only have 1 winter semester. So I would say just make sure that you're accounting for that. Okay, so I'm not going to go into the social work website, but I will show you just quickly over this presentation. So for your course catalog, you can customize your search by making sure that you're putting in your program type, your term, all of that stuff. And then your course catalog is where you can look for social work specific courses. Some people like to take electives outside of the School of Social Work. So some people, like if they're going into school social work, for example, like to take education electives. Some people like to take public health electives, things like that. So you can also look in courses or in those programs as well for your elective credits. And then again, your first class for 590 is going to be held during orientation. It's a 1 credit course, so you're not going to meet every week. You'll get an email from your professor about what days you're meeting and things like that. You'll get all of that information. So if you're a CBI or NCS scholar, there are sections designated for that. And again, that'll be outlined on your course planning worksheet. So again, look at all the program notes, the little things in yellow. It's really easy to miss because it's so much other information broken down into each semester breakdown. So just make sure that you're looking at all of that so you're not missing anything. Again, that's a mistake that I made that was really annoying to have to deal with. It's all like, it's okay. The worst thing that's going to happen is that you're going to have to like talk to the Office of Registrar, which they're very nice, but it's just going to be another thing that you have to deal with. So that's why I'm like, just try to avoid it as much as possible. Did anybody want me to go through the course catalog? I mean, I feel that it's pretty straightforward. Again, you just toggle your search very similar to the course planning worksheet. I think the course planning worksheet is a little bit more, you know, specific, but if you want me to go through the course catalog and give you examples of how to look through that, let me know. It's very similar to any other like undergraduate program, though, I will say. I'm not seeing any hands. I'm not seeing any hands. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so we're all good. But definitely look through it prior to your registration date just to kind of get comfortable with it and things like that. So you will get more detailed instructions as well once your registration date opens up. That tells you like how to log in and things like that in case you do forget. And again, you will get the slide deck sent to your email. So again, you'll get this slide deck. So here are step-by-step details. We'll just peruse through it really quickly. So it's just a video that's going to go over it more in depth. So if that's something that you find that you feel like will be helpful, definitely check that out. I don't think that it's important for us to go through it right now just because I don't want to give you like information overload, but just know that this is another resource for you. So I want to go over this really quickly though. If you want to get exempt from some of your classes, you'll get emails about this. So again, if you forget what I'm saying, don't worry. But 507, I believe, is one of the classes. It's like a statistics-ish specific course. It's not like actual stats. Don't freak out, but it's like kind of research based. So you can use, if you took stats classes in undergrad, you can use that to get exempt from that course. You'll get emails as the time comes around for like what classes you can be exempt for, but just click on there. It'll tell you all the things you need to turn in. You just need your transcript uploaded on there. And you have to give some sort of like justification as to why you feel like you have the information you need to not take that class. They get back to you super quickly. They'll just email back and say like petition or exemption approved or denied. And then same with the course enrollment petition. So if for some reason you have a required class that semester, but all the sections are closed, which unfortunately happens sometimes, you can just petition that through this and just explain your situation. So that's not something that happens all of the time, but just to account for it. And again, you can watch this video just to kind of go over in more detail if that's something that would be helpful for you. But any questions about the exemptions, petitions? Y'all are so quiet. Is everybody tired? Did you work today? Oh, we have a question. What's your question, Benjamin?
Hey, I just figured, first of
Hi.
all, thanks for organizing all this, Tanya. I appreciate it. So thanks. But my question was just regarding the course petition, and I was wondering if you have had experience directly on like having to utilize that option, and like how did it go for you? Were you ultimately like accepted for that class or rejected? Like how did it transpire?
Great
Thanks.
question. Yeah, absolutely. Great question. My answer is going to be a little annoying. I've gotten yeses and nos. So I would say the sooner and more detailed that your petition is, like, for example, I have a field placement through Michigan Medicine. So I'm at the gender affirming services clinic. So for Michigan Medicine, you have to be in field 24 hours starting out. And other placements, you have to be 16 hours. So my schedule was a lot more constricted because of that. So making that very detailed and clear within my reasoning for my petition was important. And also including, like, for example, I wanted to get into like a remote section because my field placement ended at 5:30 and the class started at 6 for the online and in-person section. And I was like, it just makes so much more sense for me to just go home and do it online than run from the hospital back to campus, figure out parking, and then it just wasn't going to make sense for me to be on time. So, okay, bye, Jade. Thanks for joining us. I would say that just make sure that you're very detailed and don't get discouraged if you get a no. If you get a no, I would recommend scheduling a meeting with them or even just talking to them over email. Usually, if they tell you no, they'll give you options for what you can do instead. I think that our school does a really good job of not being like, okay, sorry, you can't get into this class. Good luck. Obviously, like we have a pretty short and condensed program, so you need to meet those requirements. So they will give you options, but I will say the best thing you can do is just give the most robust, like detail. Isn't there a specific class? Yes. Yes. It's a 1 semester class. It's offered in the winter. Cannot remember. Ooh, it's 7 something. I ended up actually getting exempt from that because I had to take a class for my special program that conflicted. So for whatever reason you're in like a special program for another requirement that conflicts with that, they will exempt you from that class, but it's only a 1 semester class. I know exactly what you're talking about. I should know what it's called because that was a really fun situation for me to deal with. But even if you start field in the fall, can I take that in the winter? Yeah, it's only offered in the winter, so you would only be able to take that in the winter. Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions before we move forward with our presentation?
I do have a question. I
Yeah,
wanted
go
to
ahead.
know, so just to confirm, for me, example, I took a research statistics class for social work and undergrad, but it was
Mhm.
a graduate level course. So even though it went towards my bachelor's degree, I would be able to still um, ask for an exemption and
Yeah.
potentially yes. Okay, perfect.
Yes, I actually took undergraduate level courses that I was able to use for the petition. So if you actually click that link for the course petitions, it will tell you in super specific detail. I apologize, I just didn't go over it, but on that website, it'll tell you. But it sounds like the class that you took is more than enough to account for that exemption. So you should be all good. But again, you'll get emails closer to the date, and then you can just look on that course petition website when you get the slide deck. Any other questions? Okay, we're gonna move forward. Absolutely. We're gonna move forward. If I can figure out it, if I do this every time. Okay. Here we go. Okay, we're back. Okay. So again, you must load your classes into your backpack prior to your registration time. So I recommend as soon as you get like your enrollment email of when you get the appointment, just put those classes in your backpack because your registration time's sometimes going to be like something 9 something in the morning or something weird like that. So instead of like trying to add them all to your backpack and then registering for them, it's just too much. I convinced myself that I'd be fine if I just, set my alarm a little early. I didn't do that. Maybe some of you are like more put together than I am, and that's wonderful, but it was a little bit of a mess for me because I didn't plan accordingly. So the backpack is essentially like where your courses, like it's kind of where you can add all of the courses that you want to add. If they're in your backpack, that does not mean that you are enrolled in the class. You have to make sure that you send it from your backpack to like your enrollment thing. So don't think that if you just click it and add it to your backpack that you're good to go. You need to make sure that you're registering for that class. So the biggest thing is if you do have to petition if courses are closed, be patient because people drop courses all the time. And it takes about a week for all of that to level out. So if you don't hear back about your petition right away, just know that they're not ignoring you. They're just trying to account for all of the factors, if they need to open up another course, anything like that. So just be patient and know that they will work with you and in your favor. Okay, we're gonna move forward. So if registering for these are going to be your field classes. So this is going to be your foundational field credit, 515, and your advanced field credit is going to be 691. So make sure that when you are registering for these classes, you include independent study classes in your search. So this is the search for classes page on Wolverine Access. Make sure you include independent study classes. Otherwise, you won't be like, it won't show up. I didn't know that, so I wasn't finding it at first, and then I was emailing them and they told me what to do. So just make sure that you do that. And then if your field placement is confirmed, choose the section with the field faculty who placed you. If it's not confirmed, so I know Danielle, you said that it's kind of up in the air right now for whatever reason during the enrollment time, you haven't been confirmed in your field placement. Again, that is something that happens sometimes. Just choose section 888. But it's pretty easy to see their name is just going to be where the professor's name are listed for the field faculty. And that's essentially your like advisor for your field stuff. Any questions about registering for 515 or 691? Also on your course planning worksheet, it tells you how many credits of each class you have to register for each semester. Now, if you are in a healthcare placement, specifically Michigan Medicine, I believe, when you have to do like 24 hours a week, your advisor will give you very specific information on how you go about adding that 24-hour requirement, because if you just register for 515, that's just going to be the 16 hours. So you do register for 691 as well, but that's just a side note. And you will get more information on that if that is your situation. Any questions? We're good? Okay. So again, this is just more information about the course enrollment petition. So some classes are kept early to allow for greatest need. Like I said, there's just a lot of factors that they account for, and decisions are made on a rolling basis. Like I said, people drop, people add, things happen. So only petition for one section of a particular class and mention other sections that will work. So back to when I was answering Benjamin's question, just about like how to go about the petitions and being as detailed as possible. If you work with them, they will work with you. And that's not to say if you don't have other options that will work, they're going to be like, okay, sorry, we're not going to help you. But again, it's helpful for them to know that there are other options that would work for you, just so they can help you in the best way. And then these are just more tips. And then also, I know for my undergraduate process, we had to get permission from like the specific course instructors and then send that to the advisor to be added into the class. So here, just know that they don't do that way, and that's just, I think that's an equity thing. But don't like email a professor and be like, hey, can you add me, just because they don't have the authorization to do that. The only people that can is the registrar. So again, we don't give specific preference on a preferred instructor. It would be really nice if we could do it that way, but obviously there are other factors we have to account for. So that's not something we will prioritize, unfortunately, is if it's like, I would rather have this professor rather than this other professor because I've heard bad things about her. Like, I want to be with the other one. They're not going to be like, okay, we'll let you in. That'd be nice, but that's not how it works, unfortunately. So these are, again, some tips, and you will get the slide deck so you can look over it if that's something you have to do for just something to look back on as a resource. And then this is more information about exemptions. So advanced standing students don't need to pursue exemption, sorry, from 506, 507, 8, 9, and 15. And then you can apply for 505. And then again, you have to have a B or better in that class. And then just know that the exemptions do not reduce credit hour requirements, but allow you to replace that course with an elective course. So for example, 507 was one of the classes that I got exempt from. That was the stats-ish, or whatever class it is. My stats classes during undergrad allowed for an exemption. I believe that's a 1 credit course, so I just had to sign up for another elective to make up for that credit. But just make sure that you're accounting for that, that it's not like, oh, you're exempt and you get that credit. There's no way to do it that way. You have to earn that credit by taking a class. Any questions? Okay. And then, so these are just options for electives that you can take. You can take more courses within your pathway or your secondary pathway. If you do have a secondary pathway, that's something you'd plug into your course planning worksheet. And then this is what I was saying about some people like to take doctoral courses within the social work program. You can do independent studies courses outside of School of Social Work. And this is a link to what I was saying about like some people like to take classes through the School of Education, Public Health, etc. To meet those requirements. You can also do another credit of field if you want to do so. That's another option. Any questions about electives or how to find them? Honestly, the easiest way is like when you go into Wolverine Access, if you just look through, like you type in SW for social work, and I just looked through the list of all of the social work classes and look like you can select how many credits for each class. So just look through all of your options. You might as well. It's not that overwhelming. Yes, Danielle, what's your question?
Okay, so what you were saying about signing up for like the field placement classes. So I know you said like you have field at Michigan Medicine, which requires more hours, which is like 24 hours versus 16. And I know some other field placements have the same requirement. So like I'm interviewing with Michigan Medicine / other healthcare options that would be 24 hours. Are you getting more credits for field
Yes.
placement than the person doing 16?
Yes. So those count towards my elective credits. So I don't take
Oh,
as much electives, but I took advanced field. And then after the winter semester, it evens out because everybody's in 24 hours of field. So it's only that winter semester that you kind of have to account for less elective credits and more field. I
okay.
honestly preferred that because I
Yeah.
really like field placement.
Yeah.
And I think you gain a lot of obviously really good experience from your field placement. So it worked out for me, but yeah, those would just count for your elective credits for that semester. And then
Okay.
you register for advanced field. But again, that's something your advisor will give a lot more. I'm giving you very quick overview information. Your advisor will give you so much more information in detail. And then you have my email in the chat. So if it gets confusing during registration time, please feel free to reach out. And we
Okay.
can talk.
And should we expect our advisor to like be reaching out to us first? Like, will that happen since at least my registration date is like July 10th? So should I expect to like hear from an advisor before then, you're saying?
Yeah, for your field because you're in the advanced master track, correct?
Yeah, it's the master track. Yes.
Yeah, so you should hear from your field faculty prior to that.
Okay.
Uh, and if you don't, for whatever reason, just shoot me an email.
Okay. Thank you.
I would just say that if you don't hear for them, register for your classes as like we talked about, and then register for that section 888 if you don't have a field placement by that time. And then
Okay.
just reach out to the office and be like, hey, just wondering if like that would be helpful to you. But I would say
Okay.
it's not something you need to immediately stress about. But yeah, does
Got
that
it.
answer your
Okay.
question?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? How quick do classes fill up? I have a later registration date. Great question. I also had a later registration date. So they do fill up pretty quickly, but they do open up plenty of sections depending on like if there is a higher demand or need for specific classes. Again, you have the petitions and all of that. So it ends up working out. I wouldn't say that you're going to log in and be like everything's closed. You might have 1 or 2 classes that it's like, ooh, that's at an annoying time, but that can happen even with earlier enrollment dates if they fill up. So it just really, it's rolling. So it really just depends on how quickly people fill up those spots or what works for them. But rest assured, you will be able to get a schedule that works for you, especially with the petitions and things like that. So it is a little annoying to have a later date. I had like, I think mine was July 20th or something like that. And people were starting like first or second week of July. So I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna have any classes. That's not the case. You'll definitely have plenty of options. So yeah, it's a little annoying, but I am not sure how they break up the enrollment dates. I think they break it up based on what track you're on. So I think the master track students just get priority, and then 16 month and then 20 month are in the same boat. Okay, so substitution. Substitution review is a student initiated and online process. So you can substitute a social work or graduate course in another department to meet a program requirement, must be approved by your advisor and the MSW program director. So substitution for a foundation course would typically require completing an advanced pathway course that covered content on the foundation course topic. Substitutions can be a good option for students with extensive work experience related to a required course. Any questions about substitutions? Okay. And then additional course planning support, you can schedule a Zoom meeting with us. You can chat with student services. Again, you have my email, my contact, and we will also have you'll get more emails just regarding like more information and more details about how to go through this process. But if you have any immediate questions prior to your enrollment date, or if it would be helpful to just have somebody walk you through it and plan your backpack with you. I mean, I know that that is always helpful for me to just have somebody else provide moral support registering for classes. I feel like for me, I don't know about y'all, but like it is always more stressful than it needs to be. Like, I'm so happy that I'm done. I graduate in December. Like, I'll never have to register for a class again or figure out my schedule. So if y'all are stressed and, you know, not looking forward to doing this, just know it's okay and it will all work out. So here is our phone number, and more information. Again, you will get the slide deck at the end of this presentation. It will be sent out to all of you. But we do have about 12 minutes, and I can stay on later if there are more specific questions, but I do want to take this time to give you an opportunity to ask any questions in general. They don't have to be specific to course registration, anything to do with this program. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how we're feeling. I see I have a question in the chat. So to answer your question, I can't give you like a specific likelihood. I know that's kind of annoying, but again, as long as you're super detailed, like if you have, so I see here that you said, I like the timing of it. So what about the timing do you like? Like, does it work with your work schedule? Does it work with, you know, your field? Whatever it is, just make it more of a need rather than a preference for being in that class in your explanation or justification, just so that they can really understand your circumstances. But there are plenty of people that are full-time in person that are in online classes, myself included. It's definitely an option. So I would say, if it says next to the class, like reserved for School of Social Work online program only, then you would have to petition for that. But if it's open and doesn't have that addendum, I guess, for lack of better word, then you're good to register for it as needed. Does that answer your question? Yes, absolutely. Any other questions? No, that is not the case. You will definitely have options for online classes. So just kind of like the answer I was giving the previous person. Is it Anika, Annika? I just want to make sure I'm saying that right. But
Sorry, it's
yeah.
Annika. No worries. though.
Annika.
Thank
Okay, thank you. So for Annika's question, what I was saying, just if you want to be in an online class, just if it says it's specific to the online program, then that's something you'd have to petition for. Make sure you're as detailed as possible. There are options for online classes for in-person students. Can previous clinical experience open more opportunities for electives? I would say that the opportunities for electives are pretty much across the board. They're pretty opportune for everybody. I would say maybe your previous clinical experience can open up like what is of interest to you and what electives you'd want to pursue, but I don't think that it's necessarily that you would have more opportunities per se. Yes, Benjamin.
Hey again. So I had two quick questions for you. One, since you were talking about reaching out to OSS the first time that you were using, Wolverine Access and setting up your backpack and all of that. So not to sound like a goof, but will they literally, like, if I call you all and just be like, hey, like I'm online right now, like trying to register for everything, would someone like literally walk you through the steps? I know that they have all the information on the website, but let's just say it's been a minute since I've been an undergraduate and done something like this. So just in terms of that technical assistance, I wonder if, people would be able to help me. And then I have a second question, but I'll let you answer that first.
Just shoot me an email, we can set something up for sure. One of
Great.
us,
Okay.
definitely, one of us in the office can definitely just hop on a Zoom call with you during your registration
Okay.
appointment.
Sweet.
I would say calling the office. OSS is not linked to the Office of Registrar. The Office of Registrar is probably not going to have somebody that is able to allot that time during registration week just because there's so much going on. OSS isn't super familiar with how the process goes, so I think setting up an appointment with one of us is probably going to be your best bet. So
Okay.
just send me an email
Uh,
and
yep.
we can. And what's your
Okay.
second question?
Second question is, this is like sort of course registration adjacent, but has there been any talk in the program about preparing, not to like look ahead too much, but preparing for licensure like after you graduate? And I guess I was just curious like how other students feel about it, or just what that process has been like. Is it something that you've been thinking about at all yet? Not to look like too far ahead, but like I'm a master track student as well, and so I'm gonna be like, it's gonna be like a dead sprint for me from like the start of the program to the end to getting licensed. So I guess I was just curious what your perspective was on that.
So you won't get licensed until after you graduate. You're gonna graduate
Right.
with a limited license, and then after that, it's 2 years under supervision. And then you get your license. So it just depends, but the average time is about 2 years. I know that Michigan is looking into getting rid of the licensing exam, which is super exciting for a lot of us. And just having you do the hours. I would say it's definitely something that's in the back of our minds. I think like prior to starting this program, I was similar to you, just like, oh my gosh, I need to be thinking about this. By the time you start the program, honestly, there's so many other things that you're thinking about and doing that it's at the back of your mind and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to get licensed eventually. But I think that's something that you work out more with your employer post graduation, from what my understanding is, and kind of where everybody else is at. It's not necessarily something that we talk about that much in our classes unless somebody raises their hand and has a specific question and wants insight from one of the lecturers. But I would say that's something that you can kind of compartmentalize until later. Definitely something that we don't talk about enough in our classes. I wish that we were given more information, but if that's something that is important to you to know more about, I know especially because you're master track, definitely like ask those questions in your classes because your lecturers are often MSWs who have been through that process. So they're going to have the most insight on how to go about that. Does that answer your question? Good. Any other questions? Yes, absolutely. That's what we're here for. So I do have my email again in the chat. I'm gonna pop it again just because it might have gotten lost. But if anybody has any other questions that they think of after the meeting, please feel free to shoot me an email. We can go from there. I see a hand raised. Tessa, yes, go ahead.
Hi there.
Hi.
I was just wondering if you had any like favorite professors. There's so many listed for like the introductory courses. So I just was curious if you had any like recommendations for people you really liked, working with.
Yeah, I honestly really liked Erin Kong's class. She taught 505, I believe. I don't remember what that course is called. And I'm not sure if she's going to be teaching it again, but any class with her I think is wonderful just because she really has a priority on like the health equity perspective, and that's something that I'm really interested in. Um, but I think what's helpful is the School of Social Work has like a faculty page. So like looking through, like perusing through that and just seeing what each person has done either research in or what jobs and positions they've held, I think was really helpful for me because I'm like, oh, that's something I want to learn more about. I want to take this class with you because I know that you're going to add those perspectives into whatever the course is, even if it's not specific about the research that they did or where they work. I think that that's super helpful. A lot of people like Barenbaum. He's super fun. Um, I honestly have liked I've gotten, knock on wood, very lucky. Like I've liked all of my lectures to, I think that I've had because I think they all offer very unique insight. And I think it's helpful that a lot of them, I don't think I've had a single like professor. They're all MSWs that are lecturers and are also working outside of being a lecturer. So they have that like real life experience where they tell you and help you prepare for like the field. But yeah, I think that it's really helpful just to kind of look at our faculty list to see what they're up to and what they do. And just kind of going from there to see what matches your specific interest. Any other questions?
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions or concerns? Go ahead, Danielle.
I have a question about like the process for field placement. Um, so it's like I'm a master track student, so I'll be starting field like kind of immediately in the fall. And it's like applied already and like did the rankings and stuff and like got an interview with like my first choice, but I'm just a little confused how it works of like how they coordinate amongst each other. Like, am I not going to hear from the other places until I hear back from Michigan Medicine? Or I don't know. How does that work if you have any insight into that?
Yeah, good question. So, the answer for that would be the agencies don't really coordinate with each other. So it's just going to be, um, they're going to reach out just when it's convenient for them, for lack of better word. So I would say continue to interview. Um, there's not really a specific timeline, unfortunately, that they give you, which is so hard, I know. But I would say that if you've heard back from Michigan Medicine, that doesn't mean that all of your other opportunities are closed. I would say that you have opportunities for other interviews, but if you want to stick with Michigan Medicine, like for me, I was like, once I heard back from Michigan Medicine, I was like, I don't want to talk to anybody else. And if you want to put all your eggs in that basket, go for it. I think it's definitely worth it because worst comes to worst, you won't get placed in Michigan Medicine, and then they will reach out to your second and third options with your application materials, and then they will
Okay.
reach out to you for an interview. And if for whatever reason, worst comes to worst, that doesn't work out, you're going to meet with the Office of Field Education, and they will work with you to provide you the opportunities. Now, I'm giving you like worst case scenarios because
No,
I'm
no,
a
I
very
appreciate that.
person
Yeah.
and I like to prepare for all of those things. I don't
Yeah.
mean to say that that's going to happen to you, but like if that does happen, just know there are like
Okay.
subsequent steps that you can take. But I would say if you're hearing back from Michigan Medicine, congratulations. First of all, that's amazing.
Thank you.
And if that's what your goal is, go for it, because that's what
Okay.
was for me. So it's totally
Okay.
up to you discretion, but it's not like you're not going to hear back from anybody else.
So you think the school, how, I guess my follow-up question is, you think like the school hasn't sent over my info to like my second and third choice because my first choice like gave me like I'm in the next round kind of?
I think so. I think that's
Interesting.
how it works.
Okay.
I don't quote me on that, but
Okay.
um I would say if you're just hearing back from Michigan Medicine and it's been a few weeks
Yeah.
from then to now, and like you haven't heard anything else, I would say just stick with Michigan Medicine and keep
Okay.
going.
Okay.
Either way, even if you get another interview, but you're on interview 2 for Michigan Medicine or whatever, I don't even remember the process, to be honest. And they change it up every year. So if
Okay.
you're in the steps for whatever reason for Michigan Medicine, but you hear back from another place that sounds interesting, go ahead and interview with
Yeah.
them. I'm no harm,
Yeah.
no foul. So
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
yes, absolutely. Any other questions? All right. Well, it was nice chatting with you. Oh, we have one more question. Yes, go ahead. Of
Yeah,
course,
I-
Haley.
So I'm moving to Michigan in July. I'm from Pennsylvania. I've never really spent any time in Ann Arbor. So do you have any things like recommendations of things to do to like get acquainted with the town?
Yeah, I think honestly, have you figured out your housing situation?
Yes.
Okay, so I would say look around, like there are, like, even if you just Google like fun things to do in Ann Arbor, that's literally what I did. I am from Michigan, but I was still pretty overwhelmed about like being in Ann Arbor. I think joining clubs on campus is the quickest way to get integrated, especially because a lot of people that are in the MSW program went to UMich for undergrad. Um, like I said, I did not, but like talking to people that went here for undergrad was super helpful in the beginning because like they know all the fun spots. I'm a big foodie, so that was important to me to figure out the best restaurants. I think Ypsilanti, which is the neighboring city for Ann Arbor, is my go-to for food just because it's cheaper and often you'll find like more authentic food there. Ann Arbor is just a little pricier. But I think if you like being outside, there's so many different like parks and trails and things like that. There's Facebook groups you can join. I don't remember what they're called. I think it's like Ann Arbor Community, but if you look on Facebook and just like search Ann Arbor, there's like so many Ann Arbor specific groups that'll talk about events going on, buying and selling and things like that. Of course, take care. All of that, I think Facebook has been really helpful too. So, and then you'll get emails once you start the program of like each week things to do on campus, which was awesome for me because I love free stuff. And so I got a bunch of like free food, free tote bags. I loved it. It was great. So I would say Facebook and joining clubs on campus and checking out for those emails about like what is there to do. You don't have to go to all of